So the title of this week's podcast kind of does give it away. Welcome to the show, Stephen Creighton. Stephen, how are you?
I'm good, Rap. Thanks. What about yourself?
The best, the best. Well, at this time of year, I suppose we're wrapping up, well, getting ready for the holidays, I guess. Have your Christmas shopping done at this stage?
No, I'm a last minute.com guy, so but
Oh, really? Would you leave it to
yeah,
Christmas Eve and all that?
Christmas tree is up since yesterday.
There you go.
This time I'm having it on because of the Katie Taylor fight tonight, so which was
There you
last
go.
night. Yeah, so yeah.
There you go. Ah, well, here it needs to be done. But yeah, I want to talk about all things about yourself and St. Lawrence O'Toole, of course. So, at the very beginning, how did you come to pipe band drumming in the first place? Did someone just hand you a pair of sticks and away you go?
No. Um, my my four sisters were drummers.
Hmm.
Not a lot of people know that, but they were the drummers in a very small band in Ballyfermot, St. Louise's pipe band, and it was all girls.
Hmm.
And my father was the bus driver who used to bring them to the local competitions or parades or wherever they were doing or fundraising. Because my father had a small little bus from work, and he used to take them on these trips. And because I came from a family of 11,
Hmm.
the last four kids were all boys. So there was a year between three of us, and then there was a gap for about 3 years, and then I had my younger brother Rory. But we used to be sent out of the house with my father to sit at the top of the bus to go out on these day trips to get us out of the house, so my mother could get the house cleaned and so she could put the dinner on and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, do things that mothers do. So I ended up being a front seat passenger on a small bus full of girls on their way to competitions, and we were at the age of about, I think I might have been about 7,
Hmm.
maybe 8, and there would have been two brothers older, which would have been a year between us, and then there was Rory, who didn't come with us. He was too young, so it was more or less get the lads that were causing the problems at home out of the house and get them
Yeah.
out in the street. And it just became a thing there for about 12 months, I think. The man who ran the band was a man called Jerry Mahady from Ballyfermot. He was the drumming instructor, funnily enough. And at the time, Patrick Tully, uh, Terry's brother, used to teach the girls. And we just ended up being getting into a conversation that happened with my father and the man Jerry Mahady, just to say that he was going to start up a junior band. So it wasn't a case of would you like to join the band? It
Hmm.
was you are joining the band,
Yeah, and that's it. No choice.
and it's every Wednesday. And we used to go down on a Wednesday night and pair of sticks in hand, and we didn't really pay attention to the band until we started going to the competitions. Even though my sisters were drumming in around the house, the only time we ever picked up a pair of sticks was to take them and run with them and hide them on them. It wasn't a case. We ended up in the band, and I ended up on Mammy Daddy's for about 6 months. I had a younger brother, an older brother, Gary, who was better than me, but we eventually learned enough rudiments to learn a 4/4 and a 6/8 after about 9 months. Very basic 6/8s, and it turned out that we ended up having small little competitions between the group of about 10 of us in the band hall. That would be a mixture of two tenor drummers, a bass drummer, and five or six snares. It depends on who came down that night. And we developed into a nice little group at a very young age, 9, 10 years of age. 11, and the pipers were a little bit older. I think there might have been a group there from 12 onwards, which my my older brother of the three that were together, Derek, he ended up playing the pipes, and he was a very good piper. But
Hmm.
they brought down a guy to the band hall one night, and his name was Tommy Merrican. Tommy Merrican would have been a very popular instructor and leading drummer back in the day with the great Fitton Lawlers.
Hmm.
Would have been, or even before Frank Sanders was in Fitton Lawlers, and he was a friend of Jerry's. And Jerry used to threaten us that he was going to send this man down to the band hall and sit around the table and give us a lesson. And so he did invite him down, but he got him to judge us against each other. And we used to get criteria sheets and all the same yellow sheets written, playing four parts of a 6/8 with could have been my brother playing the pipes for me. It could have been even Patrick Tully had come in and play if some of the guys went up to scratch. But the team developed where we were there, got a few 6-8s, got a few 4-4s, down to a 2-4. We never went near Strathspeys or Jigs or Reels or that. We were far, far too underdeveloped for that. And
Mm.
the senior band was sort of fizzling out because the girls were all getting to the age of 18,
Mm.
19, boyfriends, drinking, smoking,
Yeah.
relationships, and the whole thing just started. Some of the older ones then were even getting married and having kids, where they knew that the girls' band was going to fizzle out and the junior band was going to end up being the main band, which
Mm.
is what happened. But I used to march from the house with me little small half drum on me all the way over to the school, and people saying, "Ballyfermot, with a drum on you going, did anyone say that to you?" They wouldn't. There was like our family of there were 7 boys in the house, and we were fairly well known around Ballyfermot that no one would say that to you because they'd be afraid if they picked on one, they were picking on the 7 of us.
And there was no messing there. Yeah.
No messing. Yeah, started that way, and soon realised that my sisters, while they were drummers in the St. Louise's band, they were very low standard, and it was only when I started playing in my first competitive solo at the age of about 11
Mm.
that I played in a competition in Green Hills in Walkinstown, and I was judged by the same guy who used to come down to the band hall and give us critique sheets, Tommy American, and
Mm.
he had me last in the competition of about 6 drummers. And I think just from then on, the penny dropped out. Like, I don't want to be the worst at this. I want to like be a decent enough player that I can, you know. Penny didn't really drop in the sense of the seriousness of it until then.
Mm.
And I suppose we started competing as a band, small little band. We ended up going to competitions, and we ended up taking an odd prize. And I wasn't the leading drummer. There was a guy come in. His name was Paul Lenahan. He used to play with Holt, but he lived in Ballyfermot, and it was Paul that took over the leading drummer's role there for a while. And there was myself, Karen Griffin, Edie Griffin, who eventually ended up playing with me in St Joseph's for a while. But it was a great foundation. It wasn't at the highest level. We didn't play in that many competitions, but it was it was a fun sort of an aspect of the side of my drumming career where prizes didn't really matter
Yeah.
until we started playing at a higher level and turning up, say, at a Holt competition or turning up at an All Ireland that was somewhere. And actually, mini bands were the first thing I was introduced to playing indoors, where it was 2 drummers, a bass, and a tenor. But
Mm.
it started to get competitive where we started to take things really, really serious. And unfortunately, at that stage, the pipers in the band and some of the drummers hit teenagers age where like some of them wouldn't wear a kilt because it wasn't good for a good look for a guy in Ballyfermot to be wearing a kilt walking down the street to get a bus to a competition.
Yeah.
So the lads start to see the other side of it where, do you know what, I don't want to wear a kilt. It's a bit,
Yeah.
it's for girls, it's not for me. And lots of players through it, and that way we stopped competing for a little while. And Jerry Maddy, my instructor, he was a tenor drummer with the St. Joseph's band, and he was still very much involved with the band because his son Jerry Junior, who ended up being my sort of mentor in the drumming sense of things from a higher level.
Mm.
Jerry was the son who won numerous of All Ireland championships at underage level, very well respected, and a very, very to this day. If I walked, he's still alive. Jerry, he must be nearly 60 odd, but I'd say if I went to his house today and handed him a pair of sticks, you'd swear he never left sticks out of his hand. He was a natural talented player.
Yeah.
But he was very much one of the big players in the St. Joseph's band with Martin Gallagher, who would be a brother of Jim Gallagher, who tunes our drones, who was the bass drummer at the time in St. Joseph's. People don't really remember that. But the guy
Mm.
who tunes our drones was our bass drummer. And uh, I ended up being sent to the next village when the band went off the road, which was Clondalkin, and that's how I ended up at 13 years of age, taking a bus journey to Clondalkin. And there was about 3 or 4 of us in the beginning, and then it ended up about 2 of us, myself and Karen, were sort of there, and Edie, our sister, was there till the end as well. But we continued and became part of the St. Joseph's band in 1985, 84, 85
Mm.
until I got very much involved with the core, started to play a lot more, being introduced to higher level stuff, and the seriousness starts to creep in where this band plays in All Ireland every year. But the band was in grade three at the time, and learning Strosky's and G's was a challenge for me at the time. But I ended up with Jerry Mahady. I used to go down to him on the weekends, and his mother used to bring us out scones and a cup of tea out in the shed, and we'd be sitting there jamming through a practice pad. A practice pad was a piece of wood with about five layers of tire tube layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
He'd be telling me, because he was a bit older than me, about the big tunes like the Highland Wedding and the Donald Camerons, and he would have played in solos, but it was very difficult to get a piper in the south of Ireland to play those big tunes for him. So he ended up going band route, band tunes in solos eventually. But
Mm.
and then we started to get a bit of quality in the St Joseph's band, and Tim Farley, who's now the point major back again at St Joseph's, was introduced into the band, and both he and I ended up becoming the leading drummers and point major of the band in '89, and we took the band over to its first World Championships, and
There you go.
we ended up not doing so well. We could have been out of 13 bands, maybe, I can't remember, maybe seventh or eighth or something. It was probably all right for the band, but we still realised where we needed to be and where we needed to move on to that next
Yeah.
level.
I was going to ask you about that moment, actually, about being appointed lead tipper of St. Joseph's. That was like a huge moment, I think, for yourself, because that was your first leadership role, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. 1989, I went to the World Solos for the first time because uh, I had heard through my sister, who had, when the girls' band broke up, my sister continued to play the tenor drum with Holt under Kieran Morden at St. Lawrence of Holt. And there was a guy out there called Derek Doyle, who's known as Butch in our corps.
Mm.
And he had gone over to play in the under 14 World Solos. And he he had won it. At this stage, I was still in the learning curve of St Joseph's. I wasn't anywhere near. I was just in the band about a year. Butch is about a year older than me. So I would have been, I don't know if it was under 14, under 15, I can't remember, but he won the championships, and it was like a big thing for Irish bands and Irish drummers that we had a drummer representing us at that level when it was in Govan High School in Scotland.
Yeah.
And I still wasn't nowhere near ready for anything like that. And I think the following year, a fella called Darren Brophy went over, who was another member of the same drum corps that Kieran was teaching, and he won the under 16, if I'm correct. And Derek Doyle, I don't think went that year, or he did, and he didn't do well. But Darren, his nickname is Nelly. He's now back playing with Black Raven with Butch. He hasn't played in 25 years, funny enough, but
There you go. Yeah.
he ended up going over, and what happened was I was sort of sitting on the fence and so wrapped up in learning jigs and reels with this St. Joseph's band, which was a grade three band, that in 1989 I decided to go over. I sat down and learned the Donald Cameron set. Martin Gallagher taught it to me. He could read music, I couldn't. We went through the book, and in '89, early September '89, I went and watched Andy Scullion playing at the All Ireland Solos in Ballymun, and he played that very set. And I recorded him with my ghetto blaster that my mother rented from me from a shop around the corner. And I ended up recording himself. Keith Orr played that day, Johnny Keogh, and I can't remember who else was in it, but I think there was only about three or four drummers in it even back then. And I took a record and I went home and I kept listening to it and listening to it. And it was funny. I was that was in '88. Sorry, not in '89. '88. And
Mm.
what happened was I had a job as a cabinet maker, and I cut my wrist in work
Mm.
in the day before St Patrick's Day, rushing a job to get out, to get home and get sorted for St Patrick's Day. And I ended up in a cast with 16 stitches in my wrist.
Ooh,
You
ouch. Yeah,
see
you can
that?
still see the scar. Yeah.
I
Ow.
was right around, right? So I ended
Dang.
up in the cast for about 10 weeks, and
Mm.
I was out of work for about 4 months.
Mm.
From March onwards, I had this recording I took of Andy Scullion, so I kept listening to it. When I got the cast off, my hand has ended up being set whatever way they had done it this way, and
Oh,
I
right.
but
Yeah.
took the sticks in the hand, and I ended up doing about 6 or 7 hours practice a day. And I didn't even realise I was doing that amount of practice because I was trying to mimic what Andy was doing and how he
Mm.
phrased and how he drove the music. And I ended up mastering the set. I went over to the World Solos in '89, February in '89, and I won the under 18 Solos Section 3. And
Yeah.
Jim Baxter was the judge and Joe Noble. Paul Turner won the senior grade that day. And I remember looking up on stage when the guys were playing it, Darter Cook, Paul Turner, Jim Kilpatrick, John Scullion, Andy Scullion, Bobby Ray, Gordon Brown. The list of players was just, there was a guy even there who you might not know too much, Jim Collins. He's playing with John Noble. He used to work in the band hall
Yeah.
shop, the band room shop in Glasgow. And Eric Ward, it was just riddled with these
Wow.
elite players that you only heard about and never seen. So it was
Yeah.
an eye opener for me. So I got home and was all on the buzz. The band celebrated, and the band then, the leading drummer wanted to step away. He was having just fed up and he needed to move on. And
Yeah.
he asked me to take over as leading drummer. He felt that with me having a world solo title, that I would be better recognised, and I was on that journey to reach a leading drummer's role, just dealing with different personalities. And I was just thrown in the deep end saying Stephen is being appointed as leading drummer. And we ended up going over to the Worlds that year, and uh, 1990 as leading drummer, and we won the Worlds. We won the All Ireland in the North that
Mm.
same year. But we went over to the Worlds, and we done. I think we got a prize. But it was the following year, that 1990, when we went to Grade Two, because we won the All Ireland. They upgraded us, and we took on the World Championships and won it, and won the drumming, won the best overseas piping, and won everything. But we were drinking till all hours of the morning. We just had a great celebration. But they tried to actually upgrade us the following year to Grade One. People talk about Inverary, like St Joseph's went from '89 to being invited to go to Grade One in '91, and we turned it down because we felt that we were not ready, and
Mm.
we needed another year in Grade Two. So the following year, I think, was the Diamond Jubilee, the RSPBA Diamond Jubilee, and we went over and played in that, and we won it again. We didn't win the drumming this time. Bobby Ray won it with Rivara. We were second, and
Yeah.
we had a big call with Rivara. He'd just come back playing. But we ended up still taking second prize. But we set up drinking all night. But we still had to play in the Jubilee, which was on the Sunday. You had to play your same set, and you had to come out into the arena and play a 6/8. You had to play a 6/8 that was written. I can't remember who wrote the score. Wilson Young or somebody wrote the score, but
Mm.
it wasn't the module score. But every
No.
band played the same score. So we went in and played. I played an introduction roll that could be heard in the park next door. I overshot the first roll. Uh, just had been up celebrating all night and just was just not in a good place. And
Yeah.
we ended up winning the Diamond Jubilee. And we ended
There
up
you go. Yeah. No.
upgraded to grade one the following season, which we started off okay. Well, it sort of fizzled out because it was St. Lawrence O'Toole's had been in grade one at the time. I suppose all the good pipers were in that band. Not to say St. Joseph's didn't have good pipers. We had a good handful of five
Mm.
grade one pipers, but you don't get away with just five grade one pipers and five average pipers in grade one. You had to have the full quality. We struggled a little bit, and the momentum sort of went from winning, which is a lot of problems for a lot of bands today going to grade one, is that the celebratory things of winning grade two, champions of champions, and taking on these trophies and having great nights and celebration and enjoyment, to
Yeah.
going getting upgraded and being the bottom of the pit of the Premier grade.
Mm.
And it's people talk about going from grade three to grade two being the same. It's not really. You can survive when you win grade three. You don't get treated the same when you go to grade two. When you go from grade two to grade one, you're stepping on toes there in celebrity status of big bands that have
Yeah. It's a
built.
big jump.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm fortunate enough that I'm in one of those bands now. That maybe on some days when, maybe not all the time, but some days you say, you get what you get sometimes because of who you are, and unfortunately that was going on back
Mm.
as long as I'm ever playing. I'm only experiencing it now as a leading drummer in the last, I suppose I took over St. Joseph's in 91. So you could do the maths. Now, St. Joseph's never played in Grade 1 from about 96 to 99. They played in the local contests to see could we recruit players. But finding players at that level was just
Yeah,
wasn't
difficult.
happening.
Yeah.
So difficult. At that stage, we didn't have the status to attract fly-in players like what we do today in St. Lawrence
Mm.
O'Toole's or Field Marshal or any of these bands. It sort of the Grade One grew its own legs from a commercial perspective and all that kind of stuff where it
Yeah.
was the thing to be in. But 91, so what we in 2024, so that's many is that 9 and 24, 33 years.
20 odd, yeah, 20 odd years. Yeah, that's a long time. So it kind of brings me on to my next question. You were talking about it there. You've obviously built some amazing drum corps in your time. And, whenever you're recruiting, members for your drum corps, is there like any special qualities or that you look for in a player whenever you're forming a drum corps?
Um, there's two parts to that question.
Hmm.
I suppose the first part is when I took the job in Grade 1 at St. Lawrence O'Toole's in
Yeah.
99 as part of amalgamation. There was Dean Hall and Dominic Casey, two snare drummers. There was John Dunn on the bass, the
Hmm.
legend he is, and a guy called David Bourne, and John's son, Collie Dunn. There was two tenors, a bass. There was myself, Dean, Dominic Casey, and we had at the time Conor McNally,
Hmm.
Collie Ahern. I hope I'm not leaving anyone out now, but I'm trying to think. There would have been about 6, 7 drummers at the time in '99.
Hmm.
And at that stage, we were just trying to make the band better because I had struggled for the last couple of years. And the whole idea of taking me on as lead drummer with working under Terry was that the Pipers were struggling to get into the prizes because the drum corps letting them down a little bit. So it was
Hmm.
to improve that and try and get better results than my pipe corps, not necessarily win drumming prizes. So I suppose quality of players, I didn't have a choice. I had to sort of make do with what I had, and that was the current core players I had, and wherever I inherited from the O'Toole side of things. Now,
Hmm.
when I say that, there were still good players. There was some on the verge of the slope where they had gone through that whole 30-year period with the band and had been at every competition and drank every pint in Terry's house and every party had been there. But it started to get a bit serious in 2000. 2000 that was our first season, and then we had a decent enough season. Didn't win anything, but we
Hmm.
certainly done done what we had to do to stabilise the band. It was 2022. Sorry, 2002. 22. Jesus, that long. 2002 was when we started to get players looking to come in and play with the core, and there weren't big players. There was a Castle Moat band which was made up of players from the Black Raven Pipe band, the two Sherry
Hmm.
brothers. They were twins. There's a young lad playing with New Ross at the time. Would have been a fella called. I'm trying to think of his name now. Not Paul Grace was his name. And
Hmm.
then we had players like Chris Johnson looking to come into the core from the north, and we had Rona Sanders had been playing under her brother for a long time and then took over leading drummer of Finton Lawless for a time. She hadn't played for a couple of years and she liked what she's seeing and wanted to be part of the whole thing. So we started to build. We went from 7 up to 9 players and we started to compete. Dean was still in the core. We players in the core that were hungry. So we actually we actually won our first All Ireland in 2002 in Kilkenny.
Hmm. Yeah.
2002 in Kilkenny, and Jim Hutton was judging. Scottish Power come over, and Andy Scudding had taken over leading drummer at Field Marshal in 2000, I think it was, and they were. That was the year of the great medley that they played. Trevor Buckley was on the tenor, John McFetch was
Hmm.
on the bass. It
Yeah.
was a great chord, and we had one on an MSO preference. Jim Hutton had us first, and there was a tie between us, Scottish Power, and Field Marshal. We'd have won in a we'd have won in a three.
Hmm.
I think Free Marshall had a 3 and a 1, and I think Scottish Power had a 2 and a 2, something like
Right.
that.
Yeah.
We all ended up with 4 points, but we won it because we won the MSR. So,
Yeah.
and that was probably one of the biggest. It was like the band hadn't won an All Ireland since 1966, and it was like we had just arrived again.
It's a huge
And that sort of
moment. Yeah.
kick-started. That kick-started sort of. I think it kick-started an attraction where there was something serious going on. So
Mm.
I was teaching Black Raven at the time, and there was a young lad out there, small little fella. He was only 13 years of age with red hair, and people know him now. But it was Mikey McKenna.
Oh,
So
Mikey. Yeah. Hmm.
Mike was out there, and after band practice, he used to ask me to go and have a listen to his solo scores to play, and I'd give him some little tips and told him that he needed to be different, do something different, bring something a little bit different to the table, and fixed up the basic fundamental things, introduction rolls, and good start, good finishing. And I think the Black Raven band had won the Worlds that year and the All Ireland, and I think I remember getting a call from Mikey's father saying that Mikey wants to come out and play with the core. He loves what he sees, and he ended up joining the band in 2004. I think it was 2005, and he became part of the core that won the Worlds for the first time.
Yeah.
When we won on an MSR preference again, Billy Dunlop was the judge, and Gordon Parks was judging the medley. We had a 1 and a 5, a 1 off Billy Dunlop and a 5 off Gordon Parks, and Kilpatrick had I think I remember he had 2 trees. He was third in the MSR and he was third in the medley. We tied
Mm.
for 6 points, and we won an MSR preference. So
MSR preference. There you go.
that
Yeah.
was we were sitting there going, you know, the band at this stage was still trying to develop into a top six band, and we were
Mm.
trying to. We had done a concert the previous year in Kilkenny, a small little concert, and brought some of the old O'Toole stuff at the time. When I say old, it was from the 80s when they were coming out of grade two into grade one, Queen of the Rushes and all these kind of tunes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And
Oh, there you go.
we had to introduce them. This is where the dawning of the day started to grow its own legs, and
Yeah.
Kerry had decided that we were going to do this for an opener for a concert in 2006.
Hmm.
Yeah, sorry, it was 2005 or 2000. It was one of them,
Mm.
and we ended up having a great night. The band had now stabilised itself as one of the top six bands in the world. So the journey had began.
Yeah.
I know it might have began in '99 when we both started working together, but we started to attract players, which was. Did I ever go out and look for players? I've never asked a drummer to join my corps ever in my life, and I never will.
Mm.
Just you've got to want to be there to be there.
Yeah.
So never. We started to attract players like Paul Brown had approached me shortly after that. He's now an adjudicator for the RSPBA, but Paul had come to see us playing in Cowell, which I think probably was the last Cowell games. I can't remember those. Was it, when did
Mm.
Cowell stop finishing? When did Cowell stop being a
That was
major?
around the early 2000s, wasn't it? 2006, 2007-ish, I think, from what I remember.
So
Yeah.
he approached me with his father about joining the band. I liked what he said. He was a good friend of Chris Johnson's at the time, who was in the band. So I said,
Mm.
"Yeah, come on." I said, if you're interested, logistically, you're going to have to come to practice at least once a month, and you're going to be expected to work hard." And he did. He waved over. He was part of became part of the core.
Mm.
And then we started to, branch out, and we started to attract over the next couple of years players from the north, more so. Glenn Falloon came into play in the band. Would have been a brother of Mark Falloon,
Mm.
and all the Falloons that played at a very high level in the north. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, we were on the pig's back, and now all of a sudden people want to be part of it. And like locally, we ended up getting players like Julian Mordaunt, Kieran Mordaunt's son, and Adrian Mordaunt and Kenita Mordaunt. There was three of them played with an Armagh band,
Mm.
and they were saying, "Look, we want a piece of this. We like what we see. We always want to play at this level." Before I knew it, overnight, I had 10 or 11 drummers. Like we won I'd say we were the first drum corps to win with a big drum corps in 2006.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
we
there
had
you
a
go.
massive corps. It was that big that I think I had 11. I played 10 in the MSR and I played 10 in the medley and took one out of each. just to keep it at the 10, but it was a big
Mm.
car. And like, what do you look for in the player? I don't look for anything in the player because I don't ask players, right? And the second thing, the part of that question was, you know, if you want to be in this car and you like what you see, you've got to ask. And if you ask, you're obviously putting yourself out there that you're good enough. And
Mm.
then I would assess the level of the player when they ask that question to see who they've played with before.
Yeah.
We're going back now in 2002, 2006, 2007, and then ask a simple question like, are you good enough to play with shots? And if
Hmm.
they said, Jesus, no, no, I said, well, then you're not good enough to play with me.
There you go. Yeah, that's
Those
the rule of thumb. Yeah.
a weaker version of we're trying to
Mm.
we are trying and we will continue to try beating drum corps like Jim Kilpatrick's corps back in those days. And
Mm.
if you didn't think and feel you were good enough to play at that level, well then you were never no good to me.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. That's sound advice. Yeah. So I have to say, Stephen, you probably have no memory of this, but I have a very vivid memory of whenever I got handed the lead tipper job for the first time with the Quinn Memorial pipe band. I was struggling as a lead tipper at that time. I'd just been handed the role and I had no clue what the heck I was doing. And I was frantically tuning drums at the All Ireland Championships and I was struggling. And one of the guys out the corps ran over, you guys were practicing and said, Stephen, would you come over and have a listen to the drums here and give Rab a bit of a hand? So you'd come over and you tweaked a few drums and helped out with snares and stuff and everything. And you'd put your hand on my shoulder and said, stop stressing and just enjoy it. And those words, I don't know, they've stayed with me all my days. So
I don't remember that.
you probably don't remember it. No, that's it. But it was a quick
I
20
don't mean
minute.
that, but I've done that throughout my career.
Yeah.
Uh, I always remember taking my leading drummer's role at
Mm.
O'Toole's at a young age, and I saying to myself, how am I going to do this? Can I do this?
Yeah, that was it. I
If
was the
I'm going to
exact
do it,
same.
what way am I going to do it? So I always look at young bands and young leading drummers as
Mm.
if it was me, what happened to me, and how I carried myself. And everything was a learning curve. Everything was trial and error. And
Yeah.
to the stage where you're practicing and practicing to try and achieve your goal of being, first of all, a better core, better player, whatever it
Mm.
may be, write better scores, do things better the next time because you overdid it or underdid it the last time. You've
Yeah.
done things that didn't work, so when you get a tune that presented to you to write, you'd say to yourself, uh, would I ever say to myself, what would Jim Patrick do? No,
Mm.
no, because the only person that was on my radar was probably Paul Turner with the Veil. And I
Yeah.
keep going back to that because he reminded me of an older version of myself in a band that played similar style of traditional,
Mm.
musical stuff. It was it was just, it
A
was my
different
first
feel.
introduction to the
Yeah.
types. And I'd say, what would Paul do here? How would, and it was only, I was lucky enough that I was brought into an era where bass and tenors had started to create this orchestral uh, 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 tones
Mm.
and notation to the melody and the rhythm.
Yeah.
I was able to use harmonics, which wasn't obviously there to people before me.
Mm.
When I had John Dunn on the bass, and I had at the time we ended up with three tenor drummers, four tenor drummers, and then we ended up with five because I had Denise Curley who came with me. I never mentioned her because she was a huge part of my contribution from St. Joseph's into the amalgamation,
Mm.
where she was brilliant, and right up until she stayed as long as she could because she had to go off and get married and have kids, which I was holding her up from because she was so dedicated to playing in the band. A great, she was a great young one at the time. She's not a young one anymore,
Mm.
but but all of those contributions of the likes of Denise, John, David Bourne, who was a fantastic tenor drummer at the time. He was, Tills. He was,
Mm.
and like my foundations of support as a leading drummer was Conor McNally on one side, and for a short space of time I had Dean Hall on the other. But then it ended up Dean went and lived in Germany. He had his marriage had sort of finished, and he ended up. He's in Australia, back in Australia again. But we ended up with going through a couple of different flank players. But I suppose the most iconic on both sides for the first half of my leading drummer's career was Connor on one, and Julian Morden was on the other.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like when you have that foundations, and then of course we ended up with Butch and Mikey, Connor and Mikey, Connor and Butch. We had flankers there, but there were a template of players that were surrounded and helped me develop this this journey of
Mm.
success. And it's yeah, I probably take the credit because I'm the leading drummer, but to be a successful leading drummer, you have to have the support of some great team members. And John, Dawn, Denise, Dave, and I suppose without doubt Conor McNally, who's there forever. And then you had combinations of Butch, Mikey, and Julian over that side. Connor's never changed, but the other side has changed personnel for
Mm.
different reasons. Mikey ended up moving to Scotland, and I needed somebody more structurally in the one position and practices to keep the young lads in check. And I suppose Mikey just stepped in off the flank himself because he wasn't able to get the practices all the time. And
Yeah.
then we had Butch on that flank. But and Julian obviously left to be a very successful businessman, and he's doing really well for himself, which is great to hear.
There you
But
go.
leading drummer's role is not just about the leading drummer; it's about putting the right people in the right parts of the band. And so when I go out and I see people like yourself, which I don't remember because I do often, probably my latest one is Gavin Orr. I've been speaking to Gavin Orr. He reminds me very much of myself when I took over St. Lawrence O'Toole's. He's taken over Johnson, and it was just a
Mm.
sort of an encouragement that no one's expecting you to win these competitions. Unlike certain people that got certain paths to the highest level, you're not coming
Yeah.
into a band that's been winning every day of the week. You're coming into a band to develop your own drum corps, do it your way, and stand by it, and take all the criticism and take all the encouragement and all the feedback, positive or negative, and use it to your own strengths. And that's sort of where I had been as a little long-haired blonde guy that took over O'Toole's. That me, these some of the people are surrounded by good people, which never helped me. Turner was probably my best guidance until I hit the 30 mark, and then I started to see what was out there and what people were doing. And to this day, I don't really listen unless we have a bad day at the office. I don't really listen to other bands unless we've been beaten by three or four bands. I would try and find out why and if it's justified. And
There you go. Yeah, no, it's sound advice. And honestly, Stephen, those words still stick with me. Just enjoy this music sometimes. So yeah, that was a moment for me. So I'm weaseling that into the interview there. There you go. So I have to ask then, before I let you go, obviously 2024, another world title for the drum corps and marching off as world champions this year. It's bound to have been a special moment. And even with your daughter playing in the drum corps as well. What a moment.
absolutely. I have a photograph at home of Hannah in 2010. She wasn't. She was at home when I won my first one, but when I won this one in 2010, I
Mm,
have a photograph of her wearing the sash, and she's only a very very young child, and
yeah.
to walk off there, I actually thought I had passed me because Glenn had been in the car when we won it a few times.
Mm,
And I forget sometimes that he's won a couple of world titles because he just sort of became my left arm, leaving the house here to get flights over to Glasgow for five majors every year, and the world solos.
yeah.
To the stage where he's obviously moved to Glasgow now, and he was with Bob Cobb. He's back now with me. He's done the full circle. And that happens in life. We all take our own little journeys, and home is home at the end of the day. But
Yeah.
I put Hannah into St Joseph's because her cousin Shannon Boland, Amanda is a Boland, and
Mm,
just became very close. She's about 3 years older than Hannah, but I put her in there to learn the tenor drum, where they loved her. She's a great personality. She's a great kid. Does what she's told. She loves the band. She's grown up around the band, and she got so good so quickly. I had to take her out there after 12 months and take her in. I said, John, but she cut the mustard. And he said, she's a bit of work to do. He said, yeah, but she'll do it. And John says, I says to John, there's one thing you're going to be guaranteed. He says, what's that? I says, you know I don't miss band practice, don't you? And he says, yeah. He says, well then, she won't be missing it either. Because I said, if I'm there, she's there. So he's a number. And at that stage, we had lost a few players through COVID and stuff like that. So it was just one of those things when it was announced. I didn't think it wasn't going to happen. It is getting tougher, and I thought the band was in a dark place after COVID with people's mindset,
Mm.
and it's not as though we were coming back to try and win the trophies for the first time. These are guys that have been around the block and won numbers of titles. After COVID, I started to think to myself, have they had enough?
Mm.
So it's a rebuilding. So I started bringing in players like Hannah, and I brought in players like Aoife Bisson had been in just before that. The
Yeah.
young guard, they're all young. The average age of the tennis section, now that John is gone, is very early 20s.
Mm. Yeah.
Which is great future for the band. And we've also on the back line then taken in young Tiernan from Arklow. I
Hmm.
know Daniel Mulcahy is very much around a couple of years, but he's still only a young man. He's not even out of college, and he's done 2 years with Cosh Kelton. Now he's to do 2 years with me.
Yeah.
And then you have Fionn Murphy came from New Ross, played
Hmm.
at grade two level, but sort of they went back to grade three, and he decided he wanted more, and he pushed into the grade one band. And they all reached out. There's no one has been asked. There's no
Yeah.
special treatment for anyone. I suppose when you think of the Grant Cassidy staff, like we've developed to come into the band that we've had in the band over the years, and we've got two
Mm.
great players, never mind additions, great players and great people in Eloy and Andrew Miller. One
Yeah.
from Alberta, and the other fella's from San Diego. Like, I didn't ask them to join the band. In fact, I could tell you stories, but I won't embarrass them on this podcast. One of them basically crying to come into the band.
Yeah.
One that was a bit more businessy type, Andrew, he was very much he was with Delco Core at the time under Peter Hendrickson, and but they're all trained kit players to play in any rock
Mm.
band anywhere. Butch is the same. They're talented players, and not there's not everybody can do what they do. So you try to keep your template of the Hannes, the Tiernans and Dans with the Andrews, the Eloys, the Grant,
Yeah.
Don, Mikey. You've Connor on one side, Alan Brommel. Alan Brommel is our pipe band encyclopedia. Alan, Stephen Fraser, 1987, second tune, second jig in the medley. What way does it go? I'll play for you. Boom.
No way. Wow.
Unbelievable. He stood
That's
on the stage
amazing.
with the Live in Ireland concert,
Yeah.
75 in Ireland. It was a bit of an invitations were sent out. I was invited, Kilpatrick, Paul Thorne, Gordon Brown, and there
Yeah.
was some didn't. They let him. I would say let him down, but other things came up, and
Yeah.
he wanted a couple of players, and Stephen McGuirter, who's a good friend of Alan's, because Alan played in Inverary for a couple of years, said Alan Bromman knows that stuff inside out. And then of course Conor McNally invited himself because he grew up listening to that CD.
Yeah.
It's a little bit after my time, but Bromwell came in and stood on stage, and he sight reads and played practically 95% of the concert. And I think
Wow.
the Live in Ireland one that was held in the north of Ireland, Alan
Yeah.
played on the roller toms in that set. So like these guys are
Yeah.
putting
Talented.
into it, and I've
Yeah.
been lucky. But at the same time, I am the one that had to manage them. College goers, school goers, directors of companies,
Mm.
guys on unemployment, male, female, travel players, local players.
Yeah.
Expectations of everything that I brought in. Transparency around the table is there's no hiding place. Some people don't like sometimes what I have to say, but I'm not saying it's them out of badness because I'm favouring somebody else. It's a level playing field in at my core, and that's the way it has to be for it to be successful.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Stephen, we're going to wrap it up here at this point, mate. So thank you so much for chatting with us and congratulations on winning that world title today. And Merry Christmas, of course. That's coming
And
up.
Merry Christmas
Yeah,
to you too.
indeed.
Yeah,
So, well, no doubt we'll catch you at the Kids with Cancer charity now because you guys are making an appearance at that, aren't you?
we are. We're the main headline. We're
There you
also
go.
doing another one a couple of weeks after that in Balbriggan, so keep your eye out for that one.
Well, indeed,
Some
yeah.
new music, some new ideas, and the band is completely flats the map with new music at the moment, and
Oh, I love that.
the new medley is well and truly on its way. The retro stuff is in motion, and the old school O'Toole's is very much coming back to a lot of the sets. So
Oh,
you're
I
for a
love
treat.
it. I love it. I love it.
New
This is great.
drums, new drums arrive here in 2 weeks' time, and there's even talk of a new uniform. But say the crap.
Oh, exciting times for the O'Toole's. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us this week, and I'll chat to you again. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph. Happy Christmas.